Development Bank, partnering with the Gauteng government, will launch the Africa Investment Forum themed Delivering as One for Africa. Continental corporates such as the United Bank of Africa, led by Tony Elumelu, and institutions such as the Africa Pensions Fund Network will be in attendance. The president of the African Development Bank, Dr. Adesina, is with us in studio. Welcome and thank you so much for making the time.
Nice to be here.
You've been here for almost a day. How has it been?
Well, very exciting. I went to the Sounding Center where we're going to have the event. There's a lot of energy, there's a lot of participation from all across the world. I think President Cyril Ramaphosa kicked it off very nicely, just last week in Berlin, when he said all systems go for investments in Africa. We couldn't be more delighted to be here.
Let's take our views back to the work of the African Development Bank. Who are your clients?
Well, the African Development Bank is Africa's premier development finance institution. The clients that go into two categories. One is our biggest clients are tend to be government. We do quite a lot of sovereign operations to government, like here in South Africa, for example. We also do quite a lot of investments also for private sector, which we call non-sovereign operations. And so that's basically what we do. You have a bank that's roughly capitalized about $100 billion, and so this is what we do, is to try to support government, to support infrastructure, to support energy, to support investments, also in agriculture, and also private sector development of the government. That's the African Development Bank.
So as a regional bloc, a member of a regional bloc, South Africa is very active in the work of the BRICS Bank. Is this complementary to your work, or does it complement or contradict your work?
Well, actually, the amount of financing you need to get things done in Africa is quite a lot. We have 5 priorities for the bank, for Africa. It's to light up and power Africa, to feed Africa, to integrate Africa, industrialize Africa, and improve the quality of life of the people of Africa. Well, it is going to require about $170 billion a year. So we put in quite a lot of money into it. If you take energy, for example, we put in $12 billion a year. To it. We put in $24 billion into agriculture, but we need other partners. I'm very delighted at the new development bank. It's a BRIC bank. It's a partner international finance institution working with us for Africa's accelerated development. So it's very complementary. And by the way, in this meeting here, we're going to have about 5 presidents of international development finance institutions that are going to be here. So it's not just
again, they need to partner and collaborate.
Absolutely, because the whole issue is not competition. It's about how we synergize. It's about how we partner. It's about how we leverage, in particular, the significant amount of resources in the private sector, especially the capital market, to advance Africa's development, especially in infrastructure.
So when you're calling upon investors, one of the biggest concerns in Africa especially has always been security and some sort of guarantee in terms of return on investment. What are you promising investors in this particular event?
Well, I tell you something about when investors come to Africa. Sometimes it's like almost you fly your plane and you drive, you land somewhere like in the middle of a bush somewhere. It's very bumpy. Investors don't like bumpiness, right? And so what we've decided to do with this Africa Investment Forum is to support investors globally to land their investments in Africa as if they were landing on a very smooth landing strip. And what do I mean by that? Well-developed projects. But secondly, we have a mutualized co-guarantee facility, which means us and the others, including our bank, international
so the African countries taking some level of responsibility for their projects, especially financial responsibility.
Well, the financial responsibility will be taken by the investors themselves because it's a risk-return world. But we have to help to reduce the risk, to mitigate the risk. So we have, pulling our resources together with African DFIs, development finance institutions, and global financial institutions. So whether it's project risk, market risk, financial risk, or even political risk, we will de-risk those. And what's exciting about this as well is that we have several heads of state being here invited by His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa. What does that mean? That means Africa is open for business. That means Africans want to reform their business investment and regulatory environment. And Africa, by the way, is leading the world when it comes to opening up in terms of business. So what we're trying to do is just make it easier for investors to land their investments in Africa, let me say, in a very organized, smooth, and well-de-risked manner.
Okay, we've touched on it a bit, but one of the objectives of the conference is to invite multinationals to invest on the continent. In an era where the African Union is in the process of ratifying the free trade agreement, what is the definition of a multinational?
Okay.
Can we see the Dangote Group supplying to multiple countries on the continent, or are we still relying on European countries or companies from based?
Well, if you take a look at Africa needs both. Africa needs to have foreign direct investment. And foreign direct investment in Africa, it used to be an all-time high of $73 billion in 2013. It came down, recently last year to about, roughly $42 billion. And this year, it's projected to rise by about 20% to about $50 billion, which is good. However, as you rightly said, Desiree, what's very exciting for me is African multinational companies themselves are emerging. You mentioned Dangote, you can talk about Ecobank, you can talk about Cecil, you can talk about so many other companies that are actually really getting out there. And when you look at it, if you look at the amount of investments being made in terms of intra-Africa investment, 2006, this was roughly about $2 billion. 2016,
Which is minuscule.
Minuscule, but by 2016, it had actually gone to $10 billion, and last year it went to $12 billion. So that tells you it's on the rise.
Our president needs $100 billion
Absolutely.
just for this one country.
Yeah.
And that amount of money for 54 countries, that's worrying a bit.
No,
isn't
but
it?
that's not everything. That just tells you the African multinational companies that are investing across border in other countries. If you take, for example, what has happened, we have been working with a number of countries in what we call Compact with Africa countries, which is the G20 initiative. I was there last week with President Ramaphosa, with Chancellor Merkel of Germany. Those countries are making reforms. Ourselves at the African Development Bank, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund are helping them to improve legal, business, regulatory investment environment. And those countries, over the since 2015, they've raked in about $150 billion of foreign direct investment. So what I'm trying to say is that you do need to have the foreign direct investment, where you need the Africa to Africa investment. But at the end of the day, it's how it's like planting a seed, right?
Absolutely.
You dig up the soil, you make sure it's all right, and you put a seed and the right, organic fertilizers in it, and it grows.
So you make sure everything is in place.
Capital doesn't like to be.
You talk about the reforms, and there's a lot of talk these days about the fourth industrial revolution. How is this impacting the work of the African Development Bank, and how is it going to impact the continent going forward in terms of the kinds of jobs we're going to have in the future, the kinds of projects you're going to be working on in the future? There was a time when building bridges was quite a big thing with the African Development Bank, but now people don't have to travel to go interact with the markets. They can work from the comfort of their home on a computer. How are developments such as those impacting your work?
Yeah, one of the things we have to continue to do in Africa is to bring down the cost of doing business, even as we prepare for the fourth industrial revolution. A big part of that is the digital revolution. And that digital revolution requires that we invest, for example, in ICT backbone infrastructure that will allow you to have access to internet, speed internet, and stuff like that. We're investing heavily in that. All across Africa, we have the East Africa submarine backbone system. We have the Central Africa submarine backbone system that drives down the cost of your internet, which you need for service industry that's becoming increasingly very important. We are also investing in education. Now, by the way, we have in Rwanda, we've invested in what's called Kigali Institute of Science and Technology, which is world class, by the way, with Carnegie Mellon University in the United States, producing world class people in ICT technology. Those are the ones that are going to be the technopreneurs, if you want to call them that way, that are going to develop the Silicon Valleys of Africa. Here in South Africa, for example, we are also supporting efforts to build also technical education. We've got efforts going today with Google, with Microsoft, to also do computer coding centers, almost 200 of those in Africa. So you will have the young people today, they are so smart. Africa can produce more Zuckerbergs out of here, I know. But we got to provide them access to it. We have a program today with the European Investment Bank. That's a $200 million initiative. It's called Boost Africa.
Right.
The whole idea is to invest in businesses of young people.
Because they say entrepreneurs are the future of employment. What a person watching and thinking, I really would like to, maybe as an institution or as a group, approach the African Development Bank for what are the considerations when you look at people who approach you for funding? Obviously, they'll have to approach you, as you say, as institutions or as part of government. But what are your critical considerations?
Well, first and foremost, let's start from the private sector, because that's what we're talking about for the investment. We actually take equity positions in private sector companies. It just really depends on what the business profile is and how well it's aligned to what we want to do.
So it's not a standard ratio?
No, it's not. So we invest quite significantly in big companies, but also we support small and medium-sized enterprises. Because as you know right well, there's really 90% of all the businesses we have in Africa are small and medium-sized enterprises. So the bank.
What's the success rate of those businesses? Because there's a big concern about how startups just completely collapse in a year or so.
Yeah, I've never seen anybody that really starts a business that intends to fail. It's just the ecosystem around them that's often a problem for small businesses. For example, the regulations have to be good so that you don't overtax businesses. So if I'm just trying to tax my business, you're already loading me with so many taxes, how in the world am I going to survive? Secondly is when we support those businesses or through other specialized funds, intermediary funds, we ask them to provide technical assistance because technical assistance is very important. And mentoring as well.
How do you straddle that regulatory framework amongst the 54 countries?
Well, it's a tough job, but that's what we have to do. We dialogue with countries to say, well, what do you have to do to improve your overall business environment? First and foremost, macroeconomic stability is crucial. If you don't have macroeconomic stability, nobody's going to be there. Secondly, is good governance. Transparency and accountability is very, very important. Third is just how long it takes for you, for example, to set up your business. If you want to close a business, you want to move money. So we have quite a lot of discussions with country on how to improve their general business environment. I must say, I am delighted with how much Africa is doing. If you look at it, 2016, Africa countries accounted for 85 business reforms globally, which was 2 years in a row Africa was leading. So Africa is opening up. It's making it easier to do
But based on what
business.
you're saying, there are those African countries which are a no-go. Which ones are those?
Well, I don't think there's anywhere in Africa that is a no-go. Every investor looks at the risk-return profile. And I think that some countries where you want to make investments today, you look at the political side, you look at the macroeconomic side, and you look at the general business side. All I know is that
Let's do a case study.
Okay.
A country
Right.
such as the Democratic Republic of Congo,
Yes.
hugely gifted in resources, so any investor would love to go in, but politically unstable. How do you navigate that environment?
Well, if you take a look at the Democratic Republic of Congo, it's not the only country in the world that has this challenge. But remember, it is one of the richest countries in the world. If you take just the amount of natural resources they have in terms of just energy, you got the Grand Inga Dam that we are investing in. The Grand Inga Dam can provide about 40,000 megawatts. That's about
and to multiple countries.
Yeah, almost 75%.
Not only to the DRC.
I know, to what Africa needs, including to South Africa. And when others back away from it because they were scared, of this things are not so settled. Look, I'm president of African Development Bank. I'm not running anywhere. My job is to make sure that, fragile economies become more resilient economies. And we stuck in there, and we provided several, millions of dollars to help them to develop the project for the Inga 3 project, which is going to be about 11,000 megawatts, providing electricity to, of course, DRC, to Nigeria, and to South Africa. And so, all I'm trying to say is that fragility, it's not an end state, right? We continue to help the countries to get more resilient.
Again, there are conversations about new ways of providing energy. Are you worried about the projects you're investing in and whether they will be sustainable?
Oh, well, we actually do our due diligence when it comes to our project we invest in. If you take the energy space, for example, we invest in as African Development Bank $12 billion over the next 5 years, which is going to leverage about $45 to $50 billion. Take South Africa, for example. We've invested heavily here in ESCOM. We invested in the Medupi project here, which is about 2,638 megawatts. We have solar. I must commend South Africa for a tremendous amount of work on the renewable energy initiative that you had. We are investing in the Zina solar project, which is 100 megawatts here. We are also doing the Seri wind farm, which is 100 megawatts. So the sustainability has to be in 3 ways. Financial sustainability, yes, I think we've got to make sure things are always financially sustainable. The second one, of course, is to make sure that the policy environment is one that businesses will continue to try, and that if you're doing energy or anything, that the cost-reflective tariff structure is there to make sure that people will pay the tariffs to make sure the businesses work, and most importantly, is environmental and social sustainability. we pay a lot of attention to that.
Dr. Adesina, who are the possible investors that we can see coming into Centre tomorrow, and are there any tangible promises?
Absolutely. You know, I mean, there's so many from all across the world. You know, we were oversubscribed, you know, already as we speak. You know, we have, yeah, you know, we have already, you know, well over 5 actually transacting deals on the African Investment Forum platform worth $208.8 billion. And we're going to be discussing in the next 3 days deals of about 65 deals of roughly $40 billion.
Don't feel the impact of these big numbers that are being thrown about in South Africa is struggling with unemployment.
Well, you know, one of the things is that, you know, you don't solve all problems at the same time, but you have to move in the right direction. I am excited that investments are growing on the continent. We still have structural problems that we have to deal with. Take the case of South Africa. You mentioned the issue of unemployment. You've got 6.5 or so million kids that are not able to get jobs already. South Africa is not alone. You have jobless growth in many countries. The African Development Bank launched
We're not even experiencing growth yet.
you know, but we launched, you know, there's a massive program. It's called Jobs for Youth in Africa to help African countries to get, you know, to develop 25 million jobs over the next 10 years in the ICT industry, in the food and ag businesses, and small and medium-sized enterprises. But we are also, to your earlier point of high youth training, you know, we've got to prepare kids for the jobs of the future, not the jobs of the past. And so we've got to invest heavily in ICT industry. I am looking forward, actually, to continue in South Africa for us to invest to help with the issue of jobs. I know it's very big for President Cyril Ramaphosa. I've had fantastic discussions with him. But I think the agricultural sector holds a huge potential here. We also know that the ICT industry holds a huge potential here, and how to also link a lot of your universities to the industrial parks that you have, so that they can upgrade the skills of students vertically and horizontally across different industries. I'm excited. You know, I'm President of African Development Bank, and I'm always very excited about Africa. Think about it. This continent is going to have the population of China and India today. Project that into 2050. That's what's going to be. Business to business investments is going to rank up on this continent. This is the place to be. Africa is the place to be.
And that's where we're going to leave it. Thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you.
Dr. Akinwumi Adesina is the president of the African Development Bank, and he's in South Africa to launch the first African Investment Forum. Some of the preparatory groups towards the launch tomorrow have started at the Convention Center, the story that we'll be watching. All right, Dan Plateau is expected